What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So, you know those games where you're facing a team that's either just as good as you are or better than you, and so you go in hoping to at least get a point, and then you come out with a draw. But the problem is, at one point you were leading against that team, and then you give up the lead and then end up with the draw. It's kind of like you would have taken a point at the end of the game, but by the end of it, you know, obviously you still will take the point, but it's kind of disappointing because you're like, we had the win, we had it in the bag, we shouldn't have let it go. This is like the exact opposite of that because going in, I wouldn't have settled for a point. There's no way I would have settled for a point. By the end of it, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's at least we came back from 3-0 down. Like, that should be exciting. But the problem is, it's West Brom. So it's kind of like, yeah, great, we came back from 3-0 down. Why the hell were we 3-0 down? And I'll tell you exactly why. Our defense is terrible. Thiago Silva, I thought, might come in, bring some experience. He's awful. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why, but he's awful. Christensen, don't know why the hell he's playing again after the last game against Liverpool. I said I don't want to ever see him on the pitch again. And he's on the pitch. Frank, hello? Hello, are you there, Frank? Do you need somebody to knock your noggin? Hello? The defender that rugby tackled a guy made the stupid decision to not track his run and let him run behind him, and then instead of trying to play the ball or just letting the goal happen, instead he rugby tackles him and puts you down a man for a whole half against the champions of last year. You're going to put him back out on the pitch. That is stupid. And then you go with Alonso again. He's not a left back. How many times does it need to be said before it just sticks in your brain? He's not a left back. If you're going to play Alonso, you got to go with the back three. But no, back four again, Alonso at left back again. And Christensen, and James all combined to help, West Brom score that first goal. Then Thiago Silva sets up the second, and then James helps set up the third by keeping the guy on side on the free kick. So your entire back line screwed you. Why is that still a problem? Who's the defensive coach? Whoever he is, fire him instantly. Because, we've seen James play well before. Christensen, I still have my issues with him, but we've seen him defend decently at times. Alonso has not ever looked this bad. Thiago Silva came from PSG, and I get, coming from PSG to the Premier League, there's going to be a rise in quality. It's going to happen. But these are some basic errors. Giving away the ball in the back. Losing track of your man. Diving into challenges. These are basic defensive errors that should not be happening. I just... The entire back four that started the game, all of them should sit next match. All of them. I don't want to see any of them out on the pitch. And if they are, I'm going to have some serious questions for Frank. Because that back line today was not a good choice. Silva, I would have been okay with. James, I would have been okay with at the beginning. But Christensen and Alonso, I was asking questions of. And then on top of that, Silva and James had awful games. So I questioned that entire back line. Why wasn't Tomori starting? Why was Azpilicueta not playing left back instead of Alonso? Questions Frank needs to answer. Because the Liverpool result, it didn't put him on the hot seat, but it made his seat warm. It was kind of a question of, this isn't good enough. You brought in all this talent, this isn't good enough. And now, today, West Brom puts 3 in on you in the first half. That seat's hot now. It doesn't matter that you came back in the second half. It doesn't matter that you fought back. You should not concede 3 to West Brom. So that seat's getting hot. And I know they just brought in a keeper. Obviously, Chilwell's still returning from injury. But if Christensen continues to play and if Silva doesn't step up his act, there's going to be some questions asked of Frank. So, let's talk individuals. Honestly, It's going to be very hard for me to pick out positives from this match, but I'm going to do my best to find both because I'm still so pissed off about the game. Caballero, not much he could do on the three. He's in because he had a good midweek game. Obviously, Kepa's on his way out because we brought in Mendy, and Mendy's not ready yet. So it's not like I'm going to sit here and say, why was he starting? Like, I get it. And honestly, like, I just don't think there's much he could have done. The first one was a well-struck shot across the goal. He got down. He just didn't get down quick enough. Second one was a one-on-one situation. And then the third one, I mean, it's just a tap-in the 6-yard box. There's not much you can do on any of them. So even if Kepa was in goal, I wouldn't really be blaming Kepa for any of them. Honestly, I don't think Kepa would have gone for the first one, to be perfectly honest. But, yeah, nothing much I could say about Caballero. It's not like he had a fantastic game, and aside from those three, like, he was so good. Those were pretty much the three most dangerous shots, and unfortunately, there's just nothing he could do about it in any three of them. James might be done for a bit. Not only was he just awful defensively today, and I've talked about his defensive frailties. I've talked about how he doesn't track runners. The first goal, perfect example. He stepped up, and then he's not getting back. He's not tracking the guy, and obviously Christensen should be tracking him too, but James he does that. He lets runners go. There was another situation where Conte went to step to a guy, and instead of being like there to support, he drops off here. And so now, even if Conte like pushes him to the line, all he has to do is just run past him, and Conte's going to go with him, but James is all the way back here. So what's he going to do? He's not helping Conte. He's just there in the space in case he needs to be. And it's not like somebody's making a run and he's going to track the run. There's nobody there. He's just standing in space. So he doesn't track runners well. He's not very good at seeing what's behind him. One thing that I've actually noticed in the past, but it's not something I've really talked about, he tends to be the one keeping people on side. Like, because it happened for the third goal. He's the last defender who's stepped back. And it happened later on in the game where all of these West Brom players step behind our defense, and James steps too. Now all of these players are on side because you've stepped back. So on free kicks, he's a liability because he's going to give them the ability to run behind our defense. Why is that happening? Why is nobody looking at that and saying, hey, this is a problem? Because it's something I've noticed a couple times in the past, but it's not something I've really thought too much about. But today it's happened twice. So why is this still an issue? It should only happen a couple times, and then coach or other defenders should get in your ear and be like, hey, stay the line. Stay with us. But is anybody saying it to him? Is anybody telling him? Because based on today, I would say probably not. And then the one thing that he normally does so well, or he did it last year at least, because this year he's not done it, crossing. I cannot think of one cross that he put in today that connected. Like, honestly, I think there's the one, actually, that I can't remember if he's the one that put the one in the first half that Abraham, like, glanced off the side of his foot and went over. That might have been James. But his crossing, honestly, I mean, the crossing in general could be better all around. I would say that needs to be what they work on this week is crossing, because my God, we connected maybe one or two crosses in the second half. But yeah, James, like, that's the one thing that he did well last season. Whenever he came on, whenever he played, he could whip a cross really well. And whenever he did, I'm like, hey, I like it. Let's see more of it. This season, for the first 3 games, his crosses are either to nobody or they're all the way across the box. Espilicueta does that. So now you provide less than what Espilicueta does, because Espilicueta can at least defend, and you're not doing that right now either. So I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if he's just dropped off mentally. I don't know if maybe he's not pushing himself. I don't know. But it's not good enough. His performances have not been good enough since the start of this season. He should not be playing next game. It should be Espilicueta back there instead of him. Christensen, already talked a little bit about, just shouldn't be on the pitch after the last match. He doesn't track runners. Second half, I will say he had a few good moments. He had some good moments of defending well. He put himself in good positions. So there was a slight step up in the second half. Doesn't make up for the mistakes. I'm sorry. Like, you can't have defensive mistakes like he did in the first half and against Liverpool. You can't have those mistakes and then have good moments and just be like, oh, okay, well, he's good because he's a defender. Your defender should be your most solid players, and he's not a solid player. He can't be like Barkley and have flash moments of brilliance. You gotta constantly be solid because if you're not, it shows, and you end up getting scored on 3 times by West Brom, or you end up getting sent off because you made a stupid decision. So I still, even after the second half, even after seeing him step it up a little bit in the second half, I still don't want him playing. I still don't want him to be a part of the team because he's still just not good enough. He's still got a lot of learning to do, and the fact that he's like mid-20s now, it's a little late to be learning a lot of lessons. Well, maybe not, actually. Some defenders play mid-30s, so. Silva, I was hoping to get, when you bring in an older defender, you're hoping to get John Terry coming in, being a leader back there. Instead, we got David Luiz. Has some moments of just good defending and has some moments of just, what are you thinking? Like, idiot. So, yeah, I was hoping that wasn't going to be the case. I was really hoping that we were getting a leader back there, a smart, experienced defender, but he had a decent game against Barnsley, but he still had that mistake early on. This one, we got punished because West Brom can finish and Barnsley couldn't. But we can't have that. So, watching him today, I'm getting the feeling that he's not going to be making it much this season. And then Alonso, stupid mistake for the first one, got yanked at halftime because he just wasn't providing us anything. Honestly, I mean, I know we still have him as a backup because Chilwell's still not completely ready. He's like still not full fitness yet. I don't even want him as a backup option if I'm being honest. Like, if we're going to stick with the back four, we don't need Alonso. If you're going to have a back five occasionally, or whatever the case, like if Chilwell's not available, if you want to have a back five as an option, that's one thing. But to have him as a backup left back option, it's not good enough. He's not good enough to do it. So let's stop trying, because the Brighton game, he wasn't good enough. The Liverpool game, he wasn't good enough. Today, he wasn't good enough. So let's stop. At some point, you just got to say, enough is enough. Cut it out. Midfield, Conte had probably his worst game in a Chelsea jersey I've ever seen. Terrible touches, terrible dribbling. Defensively, not the same hard worker I'm used to seeing. I don't know what's going on. There's been a lot of talks linking him away from the club, so I don't know if there's just this mentality thing with him, like he feels like he's on his way out, and so he's just not trying as hard. But yeah, really disappointed from him today. Kovacic was the best player in the first half and then got yanked at halftime, so I wanted to slap Frank for that one too. Because he just, he gave us an out most of the time. Whenever our defense was struggling, whenever that West Brom was putting high pressure, he gave us an out. You give the ball to him, he turns and runs and gets out of there. Had a couple bad passes, but so did everybody else in the first half, so I really don't get why he was the sub. I really thought it should have been Conte. Or Mount, but then of course Mount turned it on second half, so I'm glad that didn't happen. But yeah, I truly do not understand why Kovacic came off, because Conte really didn't do much today. And it's weird for me to say that. If you guys watch my videos, you know how much I love Conte. Like, he's been one of our best players, if not our best player, for the past few years now. So for me to say that Conte had a bad game, he had a bad game. It was awful. So I really just don't get why Kovacic was the one that was subbed. And honestly, I was kind of thinking that it was going to end up being like Barkley coming on, and I was going to have to really slap Frank for that one, but thankfully that didn't happen. As far as the three and behind the striker, Werner had a few good moments here and there, but really uninvolved. I thought playing on the wings he would kind of help him a bit more, because it would give him a bit more space to run instead of being like the target man that's constantly getting marked. But instead, it just felt like he had no clue what he was doing out there. And it's weird because I thought he did okay against Liverpool when he was out there with Havertz in the middle. Like, I thought he was okay out there, but today it just felt like he was confused about what to do. And that's weird to me because he wasn't as tightly marked. So I don't know if it was just a formation thing that he was having trouble with, or if he just had a bad game, but Not much from Werner today. Havertz had some decent moments in the first half whenever, like, after they scored the first goal, we put together a good string of play for about 10, 15 minutes. He was a big part of that. I think he moved the ball around well. And then second half, whenever we started to, get the goals and actually start playing again, he looked good in the second half. So I think he's one of those players that kind of his form kind of goes in and out with the rest of the team as well. I talked about it a bit midweek, like having those players move around him in midweek made him look so good. So whenever the movement stopped, that's when he stopped popping up and stopped being a factor. So yeah, I really think it's hard because I want to see him play well, but I really want to see him do a bit more. I want to see him affect the play more because next one I'll talk about, Mason Mount. He's a perfect example of when he started playing better, it started picking up the play like elsewhere because he started moving a lot more second half. First half he was kind of in and out, not really involved. Second half though he was really involved, and you could tell because it brought up our play as well. Like he started busting it and ended up getting a goal, from a flash shot, which honestly I will say for a second I'm like, wait, is that Kepa in goal for West Brom? But like his play affected ours. Mount's play affected ours and got us as a team to start playing better. Havertz, it feels like he'll play better when the team starts playing better. It's not like he's affecting and making the team better. And that's the difference, I think, right now between a player like Mount, who just works his butt off, and then Havertz, who will work when the people around him are working. I want to see him start working a bit more to bring everyone else around him up. But that might take some time. New to the club, he's still young, so hopefully he can bring that along. But when he did start playing, like he looks a good player. So I want to see more of that. And then Abraham had his moments as well. First half I felt like started decently and then slowly faded out. And then second half started stepping it up a bit more and actually started playing a bit more. So yeah, he was just he wasn't the same as he was against Barnsley in my opinion. I didn't think he was not involved. That's not the right word. I felt like his movement against Barnsley was a lot better, and some of that could be because it was a bit more open against Barnsley because West Brom was pretty tightly packed in a back three, so that could have had something to do with it. But it just felt like his runs today weren't really opening up space as much as it was against Barnsley. So second half, with Azpilicueta coming on for Alonso and then Hudson-Odoi coming on for Kovacic, Azpilicueta played pretty well. He's not good on the attack, but we know that. So whenever he's putting in the crosses that go to nobody, I'm not as disappointed as when James does it because James was doing it last year. But he brought some consistency to the back line, more solid defending because that's what we were lacking in the first half. So I thought that was a good choice, especially getting Alonso off too. It's how the game should have started, if I'm being honest, but neither here nor there. Hudson-Odoi, I was pretty impressed with. He had a couple moments where he just did some aimless running like he does occasionally. He gets on the ball and it seems like he doesn't really have an idea. He just sort of dribbles, and then gets rid of it like a minute later. But that only happened a couple times, and I thought his energy looked good second half. Good for him to get a goal too because it was nice play. Of course, it was poor defending from West Brom, but I just think he really came on and his movement started to affect West Brom more. Especially when he went on to the left side. He was trying to take on defenders. He was making them work, which wore them down a bit. So I got to say I was impressed with Hudson-Odoi today. I thought it was a good showing for him. Hopefully, it's not too late for him because he's doing this right as Pulisic and Ziyech is getting back to form. But I would like to see him play next week. I'd like to see him start and see what he can do because I thought he played well. And then Giroud was the last one on, and he's just a big body you throw on to give you another option and somebody who's going to fight for the ball. I will say there were a couple times where I felt like he got a little frustrated occasionally, and this was not just him, it was kind of a team thing, but he's not generally one that whenever he misses the ball, or whenever a defender gets it, he just sort of turns off. He's somebody that's always aware, somebody that's always ready. If the defender does get a flick on, he's still ready in case it flicks to him. He didn't do that as much today, and that's something that I expect from him. I expect him to constantly be ready and on, and if a defender takes a bad touch, he's going to hit it. He's going to be ready for it. I didn't see that from him today, so I was a little disappointed with that just because he is that type of player. Some of the other players, like when Havertz is standing and watching a defender fumble with it at his feet, I've seen him do that before, so I want him to go step to it. I'm still frustrated that he doesn't, but it's not like I'm sitting here going like, why are you not doing this? You always do this. That's how I felt about Giroud. So he did come on though, and he did help because he was another striker, and he's big body, so now defenders have to worry about him too, so they have to put an extra man on him to make sure he doesn't have time to do anything. So it was a good decision. It was very interesting to see Frank decide to go with more of like a kind of a back three almost. Hudson-Odoi and Conte would occasionally like step back into the left back role from time to time, but for the most part it was basically a back three, and you just kept it up top, and West Brom were kind of packing it in, just hoping to hold on for the 3 points. So we were helped by that for sure, because I feel like they were not as adventurous in the second half, because if they were, we could have been in trouble, and it could have been a real drumming at that point. So I think we were helped by that for sure, and also, again, just the keeper, for some reason, I don't know what happened on that first one, but that really, it gave us the momentum to get back into it. So there were some poor mistakes from us, and then there were some poor mistakes from West Brom to get us back into it. And yeah, that's pretty much how the game went, and that's not how we should be playing. We shouldn't be hoping that they make mistakes to let us back into the game. It should be we beat them because we should be that good. We should be at the point where, oh, it's West Brom, we got this. And the fact that we're not, it just shows we're not ready to be champions. We're not going to be champions this year. We might still be able to challenge for the title. We might still put some pressure on the champions, whoever it's going to be, but we're not there yet. And a lot of it just comes down to defensively, we're still weak. Defensively, we still don't have it set. We still don't have organization back there. And that's a problem because we went out and spent all this money. Yeah, we got some great attacking talent in, but who cares whenever you're letting in 3 goals in the first half? The attacking talent got us back into it and got us a point, saved a point for us. But the fact that we're 3-0 down to West Brom in the first half, that's the issue. And that was the issue last year. Our issue wasn't exactly scoring goals. We were doing fine on that front. We kept giving up goals, and silly goals, from poor defending. So why wasn't that fixed in the transfer window? Why is that still not being fixed? Why are we going for Declan Rice when we should be looking for another defender? So, I don't know. I'm pretty frustrated with it today. Obviously I'm glad we got the point out of it. I'm glad we didn't drop all 3, but it's still just a point against West Brom, and that's not good enough. If we're going to be challenging for the title, you can't be dropping points to West Brom. That's just how it is. So, we got to figure it out. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if it's going to take getting another player in, but whatever the case, you got to figure it out as a manager. You got to figure out how to stop leaking goals. You got to figure out what's your best back for. You got to figure out what's the best tactics to make sure you don't keep leaking goals. Because it's not good enough defensively right now. And it's entertaining for the neutrals, but for Chelsea fans, I'm not a fan that likes leaking goals. It's not something I enjoy, so let's figure it out. Anyways, enough from me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Let me know what we can talk about and discuss. All that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next game. Peace out.